Hi there, and welcome to the Plugged In Show. I'm Paul Asay. In the R-rated movie Sinners, music is literally magic. A character named Annie tells us that some people make music so true it conjures spirits from the past and the future. Oh, and it also attracts vampires. So we know that music is powerful. Just a few months ago, we talked about musicals and how they can express thoughts and emotions that a mere paragraph of dialogue can't quite match. And we all know how those songs impact us because more often than not, we're singing them on the way home. But as Sinners suggests, music can be even more powerful. It can shape us, inspire us, terrify us, especially in the context of movies. We might not even notice how inspiring or even how manipulative it can be. We've got some musical experts here to dive into this topic. We'll talk about cinematic songs and soundtracks, and our conversation might even step into a concert hall or church. And then we'll talk about a new video game console. Nintendo's Switch 2 is being released today, June 5th. Nintendo believes that it could sell more than 100 million units by the time of the end of 2029, and some analysts believe it could be a lot more. But should your family be one of the buyers? Our gaming expert Bob Hoose will talk a little bit about what parents should know about the new console. But first, let's talk music. And joining us today are musicians, one and all. I'm talking about Bob, Kennedy Unthank, and of course, our music reviewer, Adam Holtz. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
I noticed that you didn't give Bob a last name.
No, he mentioned my name before that.
Yeah,
Oh, did he?
yeah.
I'm sorry.
People already knew who he was.
Who cares?
Mr. Hoose. He needs no introduction.
And I'm not an expert anyway. I'm just sort of a griper. So,
Well, I mean, the line's pretty thin.
Fair enough. Okay, so for the icebreaker today, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just announced its latest inductees. The class of 25 includes Outkast, The White Stripes, Chubby Checker, Soundgarden, and my personal favorite, Cyndi Lauper. But comedian John Mulaney believes that there should be someone who needs to be in the same induction class. In fact, his induction is well overdue. That would be Weird Al Yankovic. So my question to you, musical experts that you are, should Weird Al be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I mean, I see
Absolutely.
no reason why not. I mean, I think Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is such a misnomer because when I think rock and roll, I think of rock and roll. And then I look and I'm like, Eminem's in there. How did he get in there? He doesn't do rock and roll.
yeah.
Yep.
And so I'm like, well, if he can make it in, then surely,
Surely.
The most famous parody artist of all time can make it in.
Yeah.
Who's
and-
extraordinarily talented, I might
yeah.
add.
Yes.
And especially in light of the current generation of music makers anyway, just looking at them in general, Weird Al is just as talented as any of them. Now the question though is he's adapting songs. So
Although he does write his own stuff too.
He does.
But the
He does.
majority of what people know him for
Sure.
are his adaptations of tunes that we already know. So I can see people sort of griping a little bit about that and saying, come on, he's borrowing from somebody else. Is he really being creative? I still think he is, but that's one of the questions.
Man, he plays the accordion like nobody's business.
Which, when you talk about rock, how can you talk about rock without accordions, right?
Amen, brother. Amen.
Well, you know, when you think about Weird Al and his influence, and this was something that Mulaney actually said, is that he probably introduced a lot of kids to a lot of the popular music. You know,
Yeah.
like Mulaney was talking about, he had never listened to Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit until he heard Weird Al's version of Smells Like Nirvana. And that sort of became the introduction to his experience with that brand of music.
Of course, that could be called a problem too, you know.
Well, that's exactly right, even from our perspective, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's an issue when maybe you're opening the door for some of these songs that
Yeah.
might be problematic.
Something that's a little harder in its reality than Weird Al would have made it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I'm going to piggyback on what Kennedy said because I have a pretty big gripe here too. And that is not only are a lot of the people not playing rock and roll, many of them are not famous either. And so the long list of snubs of bands that are not in, I mean, it's a huge list of A, rock and rollers, and B, you know, they're famous. You've actually heard of them. You know, I'm talking about Coldplay. You know, no Coldplay, no Iron Maiden, no Motley Crue, no New York Dolls. Well, maybe you haven't heard of the New York Dolls. No Billy Idol. Come on.
No Billy Idol.
Fish, Styx,
So
Sting.
you mentioned Fish. That's actually pretty interesting because the fans voted them in this year and they didn't make the ballot.
I know. And I mean, Toto. I'm just going to keep talking. Huey Lewis.
Toto.
I've got a list of. Oh,
He's
you
just
are
reading
not
off
going to
of some
bag on
article right
Toto.
I am going to bag
Don
on Toto.
Henley?
In terms of their rock and roll credentials, I mean, I like
but we've
Africa.
established that rock and roll doesn't matter to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Anyway, on this particular list that I just looked at, which was, of course, 1,000% subjective, Weird Al was number 23 on the list of 100 top 100 snubs. So,
Top 100
you know,
snubs.
it's there's no group of people snootier than those who posture themselves as rock and roll critics, right? I mean, it is an arrogant group of people, and I number myself among them. But I think Weird Al should be in, and now we can get on with the rest of the conversation.
Well, it really is interesting, and it does sort of reflect, I mean, the passion that you have over who should or should not be.
Boston?
Boston isn't there?
No, they hate real rock and roll.
That's
they
interesting.
hate it.
That's
But
interesting.
they've
a
got
conspiracy.
Chubby Checkers in there.
He's worth induction. I'm totally in favor of that. Anyway,
He sounds like a pizza place.
I know you're too young to remember Chubby.
Sorry.
Anyway, we clearly understand how influential, how powerful music is. And you know who else did as well? C.S. Lewis. So when you look at the Chronicles of Narnia, he actually has this really cool creation myth where Aslan creates the world of Narnia through a song. And then on the flip side, in the silver chair, you see the Emerald Witch. She plays a little tune to lull people to sleep. Clearly, a lot of power can be found in music. There's a lot of creation myths that have music as a central component to that. We feel the power of music all the time, whether it's in church, whether it's in a concert, and sometimes it's in a movie. So my first question is actually super duper frustrating. Why is music so powerful? Adam.
Can you be more specific?
I know.
Well, I'm going to answer your question with a story. If you have ever seen the scenes from a big movie played without the music, there's one on YouTube that does the throne room scene from the end of Star Wars.
Yeah, they do it with Jurassic
Which is-
Park too.
Unbelievably emotional. You take John Williams' music away,
Yeah.
and it doesn't even work. I would even say, as I've thought about this, and then after I drop this mic drop thought, I'll let somebody else talk. I would go so far to say the most important person in the history of Hollywood is John Williams.
Whoa.
By like it's not even close. Because the movies that we love, he wrote the scores for dozens of them. That's all.
I may
Mic
argue
drop.
that point as a griper.
I figured. That's good. That'll make for a good conversation.
But anyway, but I do agree with you as far as underscore. Let's face it. Anybody who has listened to like a selection of underscores that film scores can walk away from that even if you haven't seen the film, but you feel the emotion of it. There's something intrinsically emotional about music and how our brains sort of process that. That our limbic systems that connect that with emotion and with dopamine release and all that sort of thing. There's something about it that is just I can't anyway. I can't explain why it works that way. But I know for myself, if I'm writing something and it's noisy or I just put on my headphones and I turn on some music, not only does it isolate me, but the music lifts me. It can make me more creative just by listening to the music.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to riff on that just a little bit and ask you a
Yeah.
question that I wasn't intending to ask. For those of you who don't know, Bob Hoose actually, part of his early career was in a musical group. You were
Yeah.
in this traveling musical group. Clearly you know something about music. What attracted you to that career in the very first place? I mean, what attracted you to music?
Well, I love drama, period. But but yes, there was something about using musical theater. We did a lot of that. Helped communicate with the audience because it could be fun and bouncy. You could take and you can also use it. We also used it in some cases as that connection to a more emotional scene. You know, where it didn't have to necessarily be us singing and dancing. It could just be a musical transition into a piece that was a little bit more emotional, and it sort of set the stage for the audience who was watching us, what drew me to it, just because I enjoyed both drama and music, and that's what we started doing as a duo, and I was in a small group that had like 8, 9 people, and it really worked well for us, and we enjoyed working with that process.
It can be a really great storytelling vehicle in its own right,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think going back to the original question, I think there's something intrinsically spiritual about music, you know, because scripture throughout all of the Bible, I mean, we have one of our entire books is just songs, you know.
Yeah.
We have a lot of commands throughout scripture that say, sing, make a joyful noise, all these things. Sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. And there's an element of a part of our worship of God is in music, because God could have just made us without the ability to make music, but he chose to give us that outflowing of creativity and of worship. And so I think it taps into that, or it has the potential, I guess I'll say, to tap into that spiritual, emotional side of things, because it's so intrinsically connected with our worship. Now I'm going to go to the other side, and because something I love in movies are called leitmotifs. And leitmotifs are essentially musical phrases that are meant to represent a theme or an idea or a character. I think it's really easy to talk about Lost because Michael Giacchino made a theme for pretty much every single character in that show.
Which is incredible when you think about all the people in that show.
The thousands in the cast.
Yeah.
But you see those a lot, like they're connected to these ideas. And so when you hear those ideas, or when you hear that theme, you're brought back to those ideas, even if they don't even state it in the script. And so, like, for instance, in Up, you have that really sad scene at the start with the musical backing. Do-do-do-do. Later on in the movie, you hear that theme a few more times. And every time you hear that theme, he's in some way, he's thinking about his wife. And so even if he's not like, oh, I'm going to go think about my wife, you as the viewer are brought back to that moment.
And it's sort of a subconscious thing, right? Because I don't think, you know how much I love Up. I don't think I've ever noticed that sort of musical line through. But you know, as a viewer, you do sort of notice it because the music is so intentional as far as what it's doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what Michael Giacchino said. He talked about composing for Brad Bird for The Incredibles. And he talked about how the director, Brad Bird, went up to him and he said, hey, you and I need to be on the same wavelength when we're making this movie. Because if you write your music in a way that doesn't fit with the story I'm telling, people are going to walk away feeling something and thinking something that they shouldn't think. Because we need to be so intertwined, because the music and the plot are going to be so interconnected that the only way they're going to feel the emotions that I want them to feel is if you are agreeing with me.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Well, and I think the other thing that's interesting about what you just said, and I don't know that you even realize what you just said, the only
I
way you're going
hardly
to
do.
feel the well, I have that problem too. The emotions I want you to feel, right? That there is something that can be, well, it's manipulative. Now, it may be manipulative in a good way. It's not always bad, but the music is serving to move you emotionally
Yeah.
in the direction that the storyteller wants you to go. And just from a discernment standpoint, when our emotions are engaged powerfully, sometimes we lose track of something that's happening on screen that maybe we should be thinking critically about. If you've got a man and a woman in a love scene and there's this amazing music playing, you may not be thinking critically about what they're actually doing.
That they're
So,
not each other's husband and wife. They
right,
could be cheating
exactly.
on each other or something like that. Right?
Exactly. And so music can tap into those emotions in ways I think that are both redemptive, but also in ways that are manipulative and problematic too.
It is interesting. When I was showing Dunkirk to my family, my son, he loves music. He really loves music. And as he watched and he listened to the Hans Zimmer, score, and it's a driving, strong, seat of your pants type of score where you have to lean forward. It puts you in this place of panic almost. And my son actually walked out because he felt the music was too manipulative.
Really?
Yeah, he felt like he knew exactly what the music was driving at, and it just turned him
He
off.
resisted it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
And then there are other ways that, especially taking the leitmotif idea a step further, part of the power of the second Top Gun movie that came out a couple summers ago was the music, right? It wasn't just Maverick. It wasn't just fast vehicles and jets and motorcycles. It was Harold Faltermeyer and Steve Stevens' Top Gun theme. Because for those of us that lived through it the first time back in 1986, and I think Star Wars is a great example. I had to get Star Wars in there of music. It uses that music to connect you to something that you have such a fond memory of.
Yeah, and Adam really just made me excited about this because I saw this YouTube video of this guy before Star Wars 9 came out, before it was known that Palpatine was going to be in that movie. There was a guy, he uploaded a video to YouTube just dissecting the themes of Kylo Ren and Rey and Palpatine. And he looked at them and he's like, Rey's theme is weirdly similar to Palpatine's theme.
So interesting.
And so he theorized, he was like, and he kind of did it as a joke.
Yeah.
Because no one thought Palpatine was going to come back.
Because
But-
really, why would they bring him back? It was dumb. But
But somehow he did.
It totally worked for me.
But
Totally.
he correctly predicted. He was like, is Palpatine pulling the strings in episode 9 because of how interconnected his theme is to Kylo and Rey's in such a way that like they're not connected elsewhere. And so this guy was able to
That's
just through
amazing.
John Williams' music, he was like, I think I can guess the plot twist.
wow.
So
Yeah.
well,
Well, and
people can be so Star Wars nerdy that they can listen to a score and think, okay, I know what's going to happen.
I have mentioned this before, and I will now push back against the estimable Mr. Hoose, and I will support my thesis that John Williams is the most important. If you watch Midway from 1976, it's Star Wars like 1.0. The dog fights, the battle scenes, they have the same kind of cadence, and it's just all right. It doesn't really support my argument that well, but it's interesting. Like John Williams has ways that he likes to make music for action scenes, and you can hear echoes of that in different ways, whether we're talking Raiders of the Lost Ark, whether we're talking Jurassic Park, whether we're talking Close Encounters. I mean, you just go down the list of these amazing movies with music that moves you so deeply. And
without
There's a guy behind
using,
behind the curtain pulling the strings, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it does it without saying a word, right? The
Yeah.
very, very first
Right.
record that I bought
Yeah.
was a Star Wars soundtrack.
Yeah.
Because I loved the music so much. And to get to your point, Adam, you think about John Williams and Star Wars. I can't imagine Star Wars without that huge
It doesn't
theme.
exist. I don't think it is. I think if you had somebody else doing the music, I don't think it's the cultural force that it ended up
Well,
being. I think it was absolutely integral.
I think you mentioned Hans Zimmer. I think if you got Hans Zimmer, and he was, I don't know when he started doing his underscores, but I think he's pretty influential. When you look at the films he's scored, that were every bit as powerful, in my opinion, as Mr. Williams. I mean, I'm not saying that that you were wrong, that Williams didn't
right. You
have
can
some
say
sort
I'm
of
wrong.
influence, but but I think there are some really wonderful musical scores that you can tap.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
and they're really strong. They're really powerful.
When you think
And I'm not trying to say he's the only one who's ever done a soundtrack worth listening to, but he's certainly, on the short list of the most influential soundtrack creators.
When I think about the difference between the two, I think John Williams, he sounds classical, right? He has this very classical sound to it, and he really excels in bringing that sense of musicality to what he does.
Right. Whereas Hans Zimmer does it all on coconut shells. Right?
Organs.
Well, Hans Zimmer
So,
almost
okay,
works
can I
on.
speak to that?
Go ahead, Adam.
He helped to pioneer a new synthesizer for one of his most recent soundtracks. I'm not going to remember which one it was, or he got a hold of it, and it's a synthesizer where you can wiggle the keys back and forth like you would do a vibrato on a guitar string. It's a new thing on synthesizers, and he said, this has completely opened up the way I think about making music for a soundtrack. And so he's absolutely at the cutting edge of
And you're talking
trying
Hans
new
Zimmer.
things.
Yeah.
I'm talking Hans Zimmer,
Yeah. And he works on a very emotional level. Like when I think about Dunkirk, when I think about some of his Dark Knight work.
Oh, yeah.
He has this, it gets down into your gut, where it feels like John Williams, it soars into your heart, where this just goes lower. And again, it sort of speaks to the primal importance of music, really.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, Kennedy, because I know this is your love language. People talk often about the best score of all time, the best soundtrack
Thank
of all
you.
time,
Thank
Lord
you.
of the Rings.
Yes.
What does that do?
So, let me get ready. Howard Shore is a musical genius because, he just intersplices the entire film with these themes throughout the whole movie. And I'll give you an example: the Fellowship theme. Bum, ba, da, 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 ba, da, 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 da. That one.
Right.
When,
That was good.
When it is just the first time you hear it, the four hobbits have just left the Shire, and it's very soft because the Fellowship is just forming. And then Aragorn shows up, and it's a little louder because there's more members of the Fellowship. And then they make the whole Fellowship, and it's the loudest it's ever going to be because after that, they all start dying or leaving. And then it gets quiet again. And it slowly falls apart. And you only ever hear it again in these quick moments of heroism amongst the Fellowship members. Like when Legolas, shield slides down the stairs, or when they catch Frodo off the falling stairs in Moria. And he does that for so many things. I'll give you one more.
All right.
Because
All
I
right,
can go
one
on
more.
forever.
Let's all nerd out about our favorite movies.
Rohan. Rohan's theme, when you first hear it, when they approach Edoras, it is very somber. Why is it very somber? Because Rohan is this nation that is collapsing and their king is really sick and cursed. When Gandalf heals the king, it's the exact same theme, but it's triumphant. And then they charge into battle, and it's super triumphant again. And you see this okay, they're going off to death, but they're going to die in glory, essentially. And it's just he does it with 30 different
Wow.
themes, and I love it so much because you can tell exactly what he's trying to say with the music.
And I think that's really the key as we sort of bring this conversation to an end is what you're trying to say with the music is just almost as important, if not as important,
Yeah.
as what you're saying with the script. And it probably, as we look for a parenting takeaway, I mean, that's it. You have to be aware not only of what is being said, what you're seeing on screen, but the music behind it and what the music is trying to make you feel. Because I think that that's an important part of discerning whether a movie's a really good fit for you, and what the movie is trying to tell you through its music.
So there are so many parts to a movie, and we have to be discerning about it all, is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, what I'll add on finally. I'm sorry, you got me excited.
Last
So
words
one of my
are tough.
one of my
They're tough.
favorite shows was Lost for a very long time because Michael Giacchino, like I said, is very good at what he does and making these character themes. And one of the main characters, John Locke, has a couple different themes. One of them is this kind of standard, like, oh, I'm a hunter with a bunch of knives kind of theme. And then the other one is only ever played whenever he's going through a super emotional moment. And so there are times when that latter one is played, even though you're like, oh, the moment doesn't seem too emotional, but it makes you realize he's thinking about these things. He's thinking about those really emotional things that he went through. And it makes you like, back before I dropped my music minor for an economics minor because I wanted to be
That's
smart.
where all this is coming from. I see.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
understand now.
We had to write an essay about what's the first time a song made you feel a certain way. And I wrote about the John Locke theme because I'm just like, why am I so sad
Yeah.
for this character? I don't even know him. He's not even real. Terry O'Quinn's a great actor, but and it's just an example of how
Yeah.
music just moves you.
It really does. It moves you in unexpected ways, and I think we can all feel it. We can all think about times that we've heard these songs, these soundtracks in music, in movies that make you feel a certain way.
Or
So
even remember how you felt when you watched the movie.
that is absolutely right. That's
I
absolutely
felt
right.
young.
Well, that's the
I was 6.
that's
I
the
was
same
6.
concept of like when a couple has our song.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right? It's
absolutely.
because you think about that, and my wife and I'll be like, "Oh, this is our song," and a lot of people have that, and even if that person, even if like you break up or someone dies, 10 years later you hear that song and you think
You're
of that
right back
relationship.
there. You're right back there. That's incredible. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Man, what a set.
No kidding, the crowd still hasn't gone home.
Yeah.
Oh, they're gonna run out of lighter fluid. How many guitars did you smash tonight?
Just 2. Well, 3 if you count the ukulele. Hey, you think that bat'll be okay? I mean, I didn't bite it much.
Oh, sure, their heads grow right back.
Oh, cool.
Well, I'm gonna pack it in. I'm gonna sneak over to the hotel and watch the Great British Baking Show with the rest of the guys. Are you coming? It's bread week.
Oh, nah. Think I'm going to go back and chill and read Becoming a Screen Savvy Family by that Plugged In team.
Well, all right. Hey, wait a minute. Plugged In? They hate us. Their music reviewer, he's such a jerk.
Listen, between you and me, I think they're right. We did swear too much on that last album. And honestly, don't you think we could all stand to cut back on our screen time and stuff?
Absolutely not.
Oh, don't lie to me. I saw you scrolling through TikTok during our second encore. Face the facts, man. You're addicted. We all are. And who better to help us in that plugged in group?
Well, maybe you're right. Too bad I don't have my own copy.
Oh, you could get one. Just send a gift of any amount to Plugged In, and they'll send you your very own book. You can check out the Plugged In show notes to figure out how.
Well, okay. I heard the book is pretty good.
Yeah.
But I don't want a penny going to that music reviewer.
Oh, I hear you.
Nintendo has always had a reputation for its family-friendly games and its clever and relatively inexpensive hardware. But the Switch 2 may undermine that reputation in one very important way. It's being released with a $450 price tag, which may price it out of a lot of families' reach. But should it be out of reach in other areas as well? We have not gotten our Switch 2 yet.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. Bob Hoose knows something about the console itself. And Hoose, you're going to fill us in on what families need to know about this thing. So first off, Switch 2.
Yeah.
What is this about?
Well, first of all, we should mention that the one thing that the Switch always did great, the advantage that the Switch had was it created that balance between having a handheld unit and something that you could plug in like a console and connect to your TV. And it did a great job of that because let's face it, when you're playing a game and it's on a little tiny screen, the game's got to be shaped so that you can see it on that little tiny screen. And Switch was actually fabulous on how they created those elements. And but it had a disadvantage, and that was that it was always underpowered compared to the other consoles.
Sure.
The PlayStations and the Xbox.
And that's been pretty typical for Nintendo,
Yeah,
right?
Which,
yeah.
I mean, we're not exactly comparing graphics between them. I
Right,
mean,
right,
Nintendo
but that's-
graphics have
but
always
that's
been
the point.
pretty.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because this new Switch is trying to upgrade everything. And so for people wondering, well, what are you actually expecting with this new one? It is the fact that they've heard the comments by their fans. And one of the comments is, well, I need it to be better. I need it to look better. I need it to sound better. I want it to be a little bit bigger screen. And that's what they've done. Most of the changes are sort of those technical upgrades. Like they've gone to a it will be a 7.9 inch LCD screen.
Oh, okay.
And so it's going to be clearer. It's going to be a little bigger. And when you put it in its dock to connect it to the TV, it can show you the game in 4K.
Okay.
Which is a big jump over the old one, because the old one, it just didn't live up to like the Xbox. Whereas
Sure.
this one this will come closer. So it's technical advances like that. The one other thing that is cool is the Joy-Cons, which are the controllers that sort of snap in the side of the screen when it's handheld, and then you can take them out and use them for the TV. They're now magnetically connected. So in the
Oh.
past, you had to sort of
Sure.
slot it in there, and sometimes it didn't fit properly, and you're going where these just go pop pop. And they're there, and you can also use them independently, like a mouse. You know how with some
interesting.
computer games, for example, you use a mouse, and so they can then port some computer games to the new Switch 2, because you can use it like a mouse now. So there's a lot of different possibilities that this new unit has, better graphics, better processing, that will sort of give you a higher quality of experience.
So let me ask you, since we're talking about better graphics, better gaming experience,
Right.
Nintendo has always been very well known for its family-friendly games, right?
Yeah.
I think most of the games that are on the Switch that have been on the consoles before have been pretty reasonably family-friendly for the most part. Is this going to change as we see those graphics getting better? Are the games themselves going to get more problematic?
Well, potentially. And they've already sort of introduced a couple that are coming out that are going to be a little bit more, let's just say, M-rated. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So it will. Some of the games could potentially go more in that direction, because those tend to be, games that require a little bit more processing power, a little bit more graphics power than what the Switch usually had.
Yeah.
And so it's possible that that's the case. However, all the family-friendly games that you know of from Switch in the past, and even GameCube, that's another cool thing. They're going to be porting some of the old favorite GameCube games to the new Switch 2.
Oh, that's interesting. And this is backwards compatible,
Yes,
right?
it
So you
is.
can
It
play a
is.
Switch game on the Switch
Right,
too.
right. But of course, they're going to be promoting the new ones, because
course.
the new ones will have all the great graphic upgrades.
Yeah.
Which-
New games.
Whenever I'm playing Legend of Zelda, the first thing I think is, man, I wish the graphics were better.
Well, you do think that, actually, if you're playing it on your TV.
Yeah.
Because the regular Switch on the TV was no big shakes,
Yeah.
no great shakes. I think there's a number of things that are also, I should mention. One of the things that I actually liked about this new setup is they've got this. They're going to be doing some digital sharing, where you buy a copy, and rather than having your friends, in order for them to play with you, rather than them having to go out and buy their own copy, they've got a new system where you can buy one copy and bring in friends
Oh, that's
who
interesting.
don't have the game. Now, I'm not saying that happens with every game, but there are a number of new titles that are coming out that will have that feature, and that's nice.
That is kind of nice because it sort of has that community feel to
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah.
So, are there features on the new Switch 2 that you're aware of that parents should be concerned about?
And it just applies to that community feel that
Yeah,
you were just talking
yeah.
about. Yeah, there's a new talk, like a chat format and video connection with this new unit. It's got a built-in microphone, so that you don't have to have a headset, and you can connect with your friends. And there's this new chat system where you can have up to 12 people talking together while you're playing games. So like some of the big, like if you're doing a Fortnite or something of that nature where you're dealing with a lot of people, you can actually connect and chat with a lot of friends. Now that's cool because basically they're pushing this element of sharing chat and then sharing videos. You can share your actual screen video with up to 4 friends. But the idea is that, from my perspective, okay, I'm not a big get online with 1,000 friends kind of player anyway. Some people are. It's not a big deal for me, but it could potentially be problematic from a parent's perspective, because they could think about, who are my kids connecting with
Now,
when they're online?
to be clear, isn't that feature like kind of behind a paywall? You have to buy
Well,
the
it is,
online.
but you have to have the Nintendo service. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically you pay a certain subscription and you can use it. But as it's coming out now with the new game, they're giving it to everybody for free for a year. Until like March of next year.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
Make you
basically, they
dependent.
want you to get in there and they want you to use it, and then say, "Well, I'm going to pay for this."
Right, exactly. That's an interesting wrinkle. So I guess we'll be giving our readers, viewers, listeners some updates as it comes
one
up.
other thing I will mention before you just sign me off and say get out of here. One other thing that's happening with the new unit, not only the price of the unit itself, you were talking about the $450 price tag, which is kind of steep when you're thinking about a Switch.
Right.
But the games are going up too. Like the average game, okay, the digital version right now is going to be $80.
Oh, you are kidding me.
No, and the hard copy, the physical version, is going to be $90. Now, yes, okay, all of the games in gaming period are going up.
Right.
Most of the average Xbox game is going to be $70.
Right.
But when you're jumping up with a Switch to $80 a game, for the kids, that's a little steep.
Yeah, you do have a lot of playability. They tend to be better for families. So you do think that more people could be playing these games, but that is a lot of money.
Yeah. So they have to consider all of those elements.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Hoose.
You bet.
And now it is time for my favorite part of the show, the game.
The game.
And we're going to do my favorite game, which is
Pop Rumble.
All right. So Kennedy, tell us how this works.
Well, if you haven't been around, you're on like episode 290 or whatever. What are you doing?
Surely you should have heard one of these games.
Anyways, in Pop Rumble, I will give each of you a character from a movie, TV show, or video game, whom hopefully you have heard of. You will then wait as I draw from a second cup, and in that second cup are a list of challenges that your character must overcome. Now, it is your job to explain to me why your character would be able to overcome that challenge better than the others based on their attributes.
You know, Kennedy's really good at this. I could do the clock.
You know what? Who's, from what I recall, you've won every single one of these games you've played.
No, not true. Not true. But I would still be happy to do the clock.
No. Kennedy.
Yeah, I do
Kennedy's
think
gonna
we
be
need
judging.
to make Kennedy participate in his own game.
Yeah, I mean, he's good at this. He's,
All right.
He's
I'm so
fresh.
good at
He's
this.
young. You know, he's got
I'm
great
spry.
hair.
Okay,
His
so are you
mind
going to
is
judge?
pliable
Are
and
you
Yeah,
going to
I
judge?
can judge. I can judge.
All right, you judge,
You
Mr.
want me
Hoose.
to grab the cups?
Here, let me.
See, we
go ahead and
pulled
draw.
something pulled a fast one there.
All right. Well, I'm going to draw mine first.
All right,
I
here we go.
have the Beast from Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
That's a good one.
All right. So hopefully it's not anything charity-minded.
Voldemort.
Steve from Minecraft. I'm afraid I don't know who Steve from Minecraft is.
That's Jack Black.
It's Jack Black.
All right, I'll guess.
Imagine
I'll
Jack
guess.
Black playing Jack Black, and you've got
Okay,
it.
There you go.
we're good. We're good.
All right, Adam, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Ooh, you get Mario from Super Mario.
It's me, Mario.
Wow,
All
this
right,
is
and,
interesting.
and here is the goal.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Writing and reviewing a movie using the plugged-in format. Which one of you will do the job best? Paul,
got
you're going to
this.
go first.
Oh my
Ready?
goodness!
You get 30 seconds.
All right.
And begin.
Okay, so Jack Black would be perfect. Steve from Minecraft would be perfect because he knows how to write and he knows English and he does seem to have a quirky wit about him. He definitely seems like a discerning sort of fellow to me. He would know how to write in blocks of text, and he would.
It's the most generic answers I've ever heard.
He would be able to scrub his beard thoughtfully.
Yeah, well, okay, that
Wow.
one loses. I can tell you.
Who's I like that you don't really hold back. I can't wait to go next.
He knows how to speak. And, okay. You want to go next, Adam?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Ready? And go.
Well, one of the things we do at Plugged In is we count. We count bad words. We count this. We count that because we want you to know what's in something. And what does Mario do? He runs around. He jumps. He platforms, whatever that is, and he gets points. Mario is at the heart a scorekeeper, and he wants to make sure he doesn't miss any points whatsoever. I think he would make a phenomenal plugged-in reviewer. Plus, he has so much energy; he's not going to be missing stuff or falling asleep. Or any of that.
Hey, your
is-
time's up, Adam.
Totally, that is a totally terrible answer.
It took
better
so
than
long
yours.
to hear the connection between count and jump.
Yes.
I don't
And now
know. I
Kennedy
don't
for the
think he
win.
counted anything.
All right. And so now, Kennedy, are you ready to win this?
I hope so.
You can get Mario next time and see what you do with it.
Here we go.
So, the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, one of his biggest issues is that he's very critical. He's very angry with the world.
True.
And a lot of people accuse us of that. I rest my... No, I'm joking.
Yeah,
Here's
you've
the thing,
already
though.
won.
The Beast, he doesn't want to deal with all these horrible things. And so he puts Belle's father in a jail cell because he's like, I don't really like you. And our content sections are kind of like that.
You just made us sound like really terrible people.
Yeah. I have to connect the Beast to it somehow. Come on.
Right. Unfortunately, you ran out of time. Oh,
Okay,
boy.
the winner is Paul.
Wow.
I said at the top that you lost.
As I
but-
consider how poor Paul's answer was, I can only speculate how bad mine and
well, I
Kennedy's
mean,
were.
it was like you all were real close, neck and neck, all the way,
Yeah. It was-
all the way through to the end.
And see, this is why you are truly a plugged-in reviewer, because you are also very critical, like
yeah,
the Beast.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. No, but I mean,
Okay.
I liked your answer, Kennedy,
thanks.
a great deal, except that it, as I said,
Except that.
it just makes us look like terrible people.
no, and well,
Oh, he's
honestly,
angry and he screams and yells and he locks people up. Well,
Honestly.
I don't know.
when I was reading this, I was like, oh yeah, I've got this in the bag. He's critical. And then I decided to not think any further. So beyond that, I had to
So
just...
you weren't very critical.
I was like,
got
okay,
it.
what else is he known for besides being hairy?
Right.
Now that might work. We've got some hairy people in the. Never mind.
We'll go on.
right,
We'll go
all
on
right.
with that. Thank you so
We
much
digress.
for joining us today. And thank you for listening and viewing us today. We really appreciate your time. And we would love for you to join in the conversation. What's your favorite musical score? How have movies with their music moved you? Are you going to buy a Switch 2? Should Weird Al be in the Hall of Fame? We'd love to know all of these answers. Just let us know Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. You can leave us a message on the Plugged In Show homepage, or you can write us an email at team@thepluggedinshow.com. And be sure to join us next week when we talk about How to Train Your Dragon, the new movie. That show will definitely not be toothless.
Ha!
I do what I can. Thank
Don't
you.
you love the fact that you've got 14 producers?
Thanks so much. See you again next time.